Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Again, 35th Annual Cancer Control Society Convention, the Sheraton Universal Hotel, Universal City, California. Our next speaker is someone that I met in January, and it was a fascinating experience. And some of you may have seen he just made a significant contribution to the Cancer Control Society. And the story that he has, that he's going to tell, I think is truly remarkable. Kevin Wright is a businessman from the UK. He has a son, 2 years ago, was diagnosed with a neuroblastoma. And then this is his story. Kevin, thank you very much for taking the time to come.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you, everybody. I came here to tell you about my son, Bobby. He was born in February 2002. He had an undiagnosed breech birth at home, and he was perfect apart from an undescended testicle, which I was told by the doctors is just one of those things. But of course I now know that it indicates some kind of hormone disruption whilst in the womb. The testicle was brought down while under general anaesthetic just after his first birthday. All was well for the next 2 years. Bobby grew and developed normally. I was very pleased that my wife breastfed him for 2.5 years with no problems, until our family doctor gave my wife Jackie antibiotics, which he said she could breastfeed on. But when we checked, we found that breastfeeding should be stopped while taking this drug. We'd always had trust and faith in our family doctor, who we thought knew best. The only type of medicine we had ever used was allopathic. Bobby's third birthday, February 05, this picture was taken on his birthday. It came and it went. But it was around this time that we noticed Bobby was not keen on walking. He wanted to ride in his pushchair, more than our daughter did at his age, but we just put it down to him being a boy and being a bit lazy. On Good Friday morning of 2005, Bobby was 3 years and 3 months. Jackie was dressing him and saw that he had a swelling in his left groin and a cellulitis-type rash on the front of his left thigh and a noticeable limp. She took his temperature, which was on the high side, so as it was a public holiday, she took him to our local hospital, as the family doctor's surgery was not open. The doctors at the hospital diagnosed osteomyelitis, bacterial infection of the bone marrow, and admitted him as an inpatient so that a course of IV antibiotics could be given. Over the next 2 weeks, various different antibiotics were given, which achieved only temporary relief of his symptoms. During the third week, an incision was made in the outside of Bobby's left thigh, and holes were drilled in his femur to, quote, let the antibiotics into the bone marrow. But still no change. His CRP was up and down. The worst part of all this was the insertion of a cannula every other day, which never found a vein first time, and I cried with him. It was during this third week that while in my village pub after leaving the hospital at 9 p.m, that another local who was a retired doctor and knew that Bobby was in hospital took me to one side and asked if the paediatricians had mentioned malignant processes. I was stunned. I was shocked. I was in disbelief that my friend could mention cancer in the same breath as my son's name. Of course they hadn't. Bobby had a bacterial infection of his bone marrow, not cancer. We've had no cancer whatsoever in either my or my wife's family, and I mean not one case. But the seed had been sown. At pub closing time, I went to my office, which is in an outbuilding at my home, and hit the internet, and to my complete horror, I found that most cancers can spread to bones and bone marrow. I went to bed at 3 a.m. but couldn't sleep. I decided I wouldn't mention this to my wife. I would ask a consultant paediatrician the next day. I cornered a doctor in private that next day, and he said that actually a bone marrow biopsy, bone trophine and CT scan had been considered by the medical team, and that as Bobby was not improving, they would be scheduling the test for the start of the next week. I was privately frantic. I could not believe that Bobby might have cancer, but it was something that I had to get my head around. Denial would help no one. The biopsies and CT were carried out, and the next day we were called to an office, and on entering, Jackie immediately started crying. There was a new doctor on the team in the room. Jackie knew that he's an oncologist, as she'd worked in that hospital as a nurse before we started our family. The doctor said that Bobby had stage 4 neuroblastoma with metastases to bones and marrow. His primary tumour site was his left adrenal. The tumour was bilobed and 7 centimetres by 8 centimetres, but it had spread into every bone marrow cavity. into his skull vault, and he had 2 further tumours on his left femur. I was so very, very angry. The 4-week misdiagnosis was unforgivable, but I now know that many parents take their kids to doctors dozens of times over a 12 or even 18-month period before a neuroblastoma diagnosis is made, because it is such a rare cancer. I asked, what's the survival rate for this neuroblastoma? I was told under 20% survive 1 year and 3% survive for 5. What's caused this, I asked. No one knows, was the reply. There's no money going into researching causes. What can I do to improve his chances? Nothing, was the reply. What about diet? They said there's no evidence that diet makes any difference at all. We should let Bob eat whatever he wants to reduce the inevitable weight loss. Now, I'm not stupid, yet these people were obviously wrong. So I said, okay then. So we take child A, we give him a Burger King for breakfast, a KFC for lunch, McDonald's for dinner, plenty of Pringles, lots of Diet Coke. And then we take child B and feed him a diet based around home-cooked food. Are you telling me that they'll do the same? The answer was the same again. There's no evidence to show that there would be any difference in outcome. Now, I was already steamingly, ragingly furious, and to be told such complete and utter rubbish just added to my fury. I just refused to believe that with the technology available in the 21st century, that we couldn't at least have an educated guess on causes. As far as diet is concerned, the UK health authorities have been spending millions of pounds on education to tell us that we should eat at least 5 portions of fruit and vegetables a day. I ended the meeting right there, right then, as to argue with these people was obviously pointless. They obviously have a very narrow knowledge where cancer is concerned. They may know their chemo, etc., but to say diet would make no difference showed their total ignorance to me. Jackie and I went outside and I told her, I will get to the bottom of this. I'm going to stop work today and put all my time, effort and resources into this fight. We agreed that Jackie would do the hospital time and I would do everything in my power to see that this came out right. I would leave no stone unturned. I would scour the planet for the answers. We will not lose our little boy. Jackie went back to Bobby, who was in his hospital room with a girlfriend of hers, and I went home to make dinner to take back to the hospital at 6 o'clock, as I had every day since Bobby was admitted. UK hospital food is very, very bad. Lots of sausages, deep-fried food, and lots of processed junk. But while driving home, I started to formulate my plan. Firstly, I needed a second opinion, but from outside Europe. Neuroblastoma is treated to an EU-wide protocol. The treatment is 80 days of combination chemo in 10-day cycles, 3 days on and 7 days off. And for those of you who know about chemo, you know that is aggressive chemotherapy. This is followed by surgery to remove the primary tumour, then high-dose MAT chemotherapy, maximum action treatment, designed to completely clear all bone marrow cavities of marrow and hopefully cancer too. This is then followed by radiation therapy and then redifferentiation therapy, which is high-dose pulse Roaccutane, designed to redifferentiate any tumour cells that are almost always missed. Now, this is all provided it goes according to plan, but I now know that this happens in less than 10% of these small kids. Average age of diagnosis of neuroblastoma is just 3 years old. It struck me, though, as a trained vehicle engineer, that this treatment focused only on the symptom, the tumour. If the engine oil light came on in my car and I took it to be repaired and the mechanics chopped the dashboard out with an axe, destroyed the speedo, the rev counter, the temperature and fuel gauges, and then just took the bulb out of the oil light, it's just made the car pretty much unusable. And of course, the cause of the oil light coming on has been ignored. That night, the day of diagnosis, I spoke to Sloan Kettering, I spoke to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and I spoke to Children's Hospital here in LA. And I wanted to find which doctor has been treating neuroblastoma for the longest period of time. And I found it as a doctor by the name of Bob Seeger, who is here at CHLA. He's been specialising in the treatment of this disease for over 30 years. And yes, he would see Bobby, and yes, he would give a second opinion. So while encountering huge resistance from the doctors in the UK and mumblings of child abuse, Jackie, her friend and Bobby, together with anti-inflammatories which totally removed his symptoms, flew here to LA to see Dr. Seeger. The outcome was twofold. Dr. Seeger told me in no uncertain terms that I was not to allow an open biopsy of the tumour to be carried out, and he confirmed the diagnosis. There's no need for the biopsy, he said. It's likely to spread the tumour more. He thought that US survival rates are higher than the European, but that it would be outweighed by Bobby not being in his home surroundings. Secondly, though, it gave me the 8 days they were away to research 20 hours a day. And what I found truly shocked me. The UK doctors had told me not to search the internet. It would only confuse me. What I did find, though, was a huge wealth of information. There was, in fact, so very, very much I could do. Food, natural treatments that had no side effects. So, my strategy that I came up with was 1, to fight the cancer directly from as many different angles as possible, simultaneously, using diet, homeopathy, Ayurvedic medicine, bioresonance, and all the other natural approaches. To make his body as cancer unfriendly as possible. Again, more nutrition, acid-alkaline balance, detoxification, etc. I had no choice over the chemotherapy. You refuse chemotherapy for a child in the UK, they'll take the child from you and do it anyway. So, he's having chemo, let's make it as effective as possible. And I read about antioxidants during chemo. I asked the oncologist about this. They told me not to give him antioxidants during chemo, and I discovered that is based on absolutely no scientific evidence whatsoever. The evidence is, give the antioxidants. 4, to reduce the side effects of the chemo as much as possible. Again, diet, homeopathy, detox, supplementation. And finally, 5, to identify the probable causes via testing for nutritional status, heavy metals, parasites, volatile organic compounds in blood, etc. And so I began to leverage the odds in Bobby's favour, dealing with food issues myself while finding and employing the right healthcare professionals to organise the testing, supplementation and other approaches. So, first thing I did was water. Once I realised what's in tap water, I fitted this whole house water filter system. I didn't even want my family to wash with it, never mind drink it. Secondly, I bought a steam distiller. I didn't feel that the filtered water was even pure enough for Bobby. So the water is filtered and then we distill it. But of course, distilled water, as you probably all know, is dead, has no mineral content. This is a device on the left. It's called a PIMAG optimizer. The grey ring contains organic minerals, and there's a vortex is created in it which replaces the magnetic energy. We then bottle it into glass bottles. What I read about plastic, again, made my hair curl, phthalates, bisphenol A, etc. And that means that there is no storage of food or drink in plastic containers of any kind in my house. The spiral device that you can see contains imploded water and replaces energy. Probably. I don't know. I don't know. The theory sounded right. The worst thing that was going to happen is I was going to lose a few pounds. So why not? This is the Norwalk. I decided on the Norwalk juicer because of all the things that are good about Norwalk. But we use it every single day, 2 or 3 times a day. And Bobby drinks only our purified water and various different juices from that Norwalk. I then wanted to clean the air up in the home. I knew Bobby was going to be without an immune system, and so I set to make our home an insular, sterile bubble as much as I could. And this machine is by a company called EcoQuest, and I decided that it contained the best balance of features for what I needed. But we really did notice the difference in the air quality in our home. This is a portable version of the same machine. We took this everywhere. This went in the car with us. It went in Bobby's hospital rooms. It was always by his side. Now, this is Bobby at day 40 of his chemotherapy. The other kids, they were losing lots of weight, some of them vomiting every 90 minutes and going from infection to infection to infection. Bobby had lost no weight. He had not been sick once, and he had had no infections. I knew then that this approach was really working. Bob was eating nothing from a tin, jar, carton, packet or bottle, and of course no dairy, only local, organic, unpasteurised goat's milk. He was drinking lots of fresh fruit and vegetable juices, eating tons of black grapes along the Joanna Brandt protocol, flaxseed oil and cottage cheese, again Joanna Budvig, and basically all the foods thought to hinder cancer and no foods that would help the cancer. I'd also consulted an integrated cancer specialist by the name of Dr. Etienne Calabou in Harley Street in London. He'd ordered lots and lots of blood, stool and urine testing, and they'd been carried out, and so Bob was on a pretty heavyweight supplement program, over 40 different things a day, but he never complained once. The hospital re-scanned Bobby at day 40. They did more bone marrow biopsies and trophines. And guess what? The biopsies and trophines were clear of disease. And the tumours on his right thigh bone had gone. His primary tumour in his abdomen had shrunk by more than 50% and showed extensive calcification. Bobby is car mad. I mean, he is absolutely vehicle mad. I guess it's from my motor trade background. And that car belongs to Mr. Uri Geller. Now, he taught us so much about positive thinking. And the main thing, the one thing that I really took away with me was he told us, do not think about what you do not want. Don't give it headspace. We didn't ever allow ourselves to think, what if? And yes, Bobby can bend spoons with his mind. This is Bobby's far infrared sauna. He goes in it for 30 to 60 minutes every morning after breakfast. This is a steam sauna, an ozone generator that I bought that was used in conjunction with with a bottle of oxygen to get ozone into him. He didn't like this too much because the sweat running down his body tickled him, so we had trouble getting him into it. But I'm convinced that Bob, who is really so very reasonable and mild-mannered, and it's due to his natural diet. We don't have tantrums, we don't have shouting and screaming. I mean, you can reason with the boy for a 5-year-old that he is now. You know, he's just so reasonable. And I see all these other kids, and it's all about the food. I asked the oncologists if parasites could have a part in Bobby's neuroblastoma, and I was sneered at. They said, Mr. Wright, if we lived in the tropics or in Victorian times maybe, but no, not parasites, not in the United Kingdom in the 21st century. One of the tests we had done was a stool test for parasites, and guess what? He had 2 microscopic parasites and pinworms. So we followed Hilda Clark's protocol with this zapper, used the wormwood, the cloves, the black walnut hull, as she says, and 20 days after starting, Bob's stools were alive with worms. I checked every one of them. Although it is strange how, as a parent, I now get satisfaction from a well-formed stool. Those of you familiar with the Clark zapper will know that plate zapping is thought to be most effective, but the possibility of having Bob sit still next to this plate zapper for hours on end was impossible. So what I did, this lid here is a lid for a little plastic tub. I fitted the plates inside. We put the bottles inside and put it all in a rucksack, and he just ran around with his rucksack on and did his stuff. Problem solved. I read about the work of Royal Rife. And after much research, I personally chose the resonant light machine from Canada. Now, the first time we used this machine, Bobby had a definite Herxheimer detox reaction. I won't go into what happened, but I can assure you he did. Now, he loves this machine so much, and he's always asking for it to be on. And when I asked him why he liked it, he said because it made his tummy feel warm, and he put his hand directly on top of his tumour. Now, he was 3. He didn't know where it was. And we still use the light for maintenance, and I really do believe in this machine, and I don't sell them. I just really believe in it. This is my check chart. Not that I'm a very organised person. It records at the top 20 minutes of trampoline, which he goes on every single day. It records 40 minutes of walking, which he does every single day. We record all his school time because we educate him at home, because it's the only way that I can be fanatical about his diet and ensure that no well-minding people give him chocolate, candy, soda. Go down again, glasses of water. He has at least 5 glasses of water a day. Every time he goes to the toilet, whatever he wheezes out, we just replace it with a similar amount of water. There's his pH. We record all of his pHs through the course of the day, and we're looking for this to start at 6.5, somewhere around there, and to increase during the course of the day. We started this when he was carrying tumour, and for him to test 5.25 was not unusual. But as time went on, it got higher and higher and higher, and from time to time we even get an 8. And finally, at the bottom is the resonant light machine. What banks were run on what day at what time. Next was surgery. This was just before he was due his surgery. And as you can see, he hadn't even lost all of his hair totally. So, it was scheduled for 6 to 8 hours, yet it took less than 2.5. A complete resection was achieved with excellent tissue margins. The adrenal was removed with the tumour, but there was no involvement with the kidney. The histology of the tumour reported less than 1% viable neuroblastoma. The rest had calcified. The race was now on to get him fit as possible for the high-dose maximum action treatment. This treatment is life-threatening in itself. The doctors told me that Bob would sustain hearing damage, stunted growth, serious bowel problems, liver and kidney damage, infection, and even possible heart damage. The treatment started in an isolation room, and guess what? The first week, no sickness, no weight loss. He continued to eat his own food, no nasal gastro tube, which every other child had. Our biggest worry was that he would tangle his lines up doing roly-polies on his bed. And you see the fresh air machine? It went everywhere with us. This is 2 weeks into the maximum action treatment. At this time, he had been sick just 5 times. He'd not eaten for 3 days, but while other children were skeletal, vomiting constantly, suffering extreme mucositis, and even dying, Bob took it all in his stride. I used a homeopathic remedy called Traumeal S, which is proven to reduce mucositis significantly in chemotherapy patients. Unfortunately, not by UK doctors, though. This is Bobby leaving isolation after only 22 days, and it's a record for that hospital and every other NHS hospital in the UK. The average is 45 to 60 days, so 30 days is considered good, and 22 days is nothing short of extraordinary. And as you can see, he was so pleased to leave the place. Hip hip, hooray. Now, it was now time to start repairing the damage that the chemo had done with the other, and so that I could get on with the other things that I wanted to do. There was lots of testing and supplementation going on. The oncologist wanted to give local radiotherapy to his primary tumour site, just in case. But I wasn't having it. The surgeon wrote his notes immediately after the operation, and there was no way that he'd missed any tumour. So there was absolutely no way I was going to subject Bobby to that radiation and a general anaesthetic every day for 3 weeks, and the resulting damage that the radiation would undoubtedly do to him. I stuck to my guns. It was hard, but I got my way. No radiation. This is just 12 weeks later. Now, Bobby was taking his Roaccutane by this time, and the side effects are usually severe cracking of the skin around the nose, mouth, chin, cheeks, and elevated liver enzymes. I'd seen other kids whose side effects were so bad that the treatment had to be stopped. But guess what? Bob only ever had a very small amount of dry skin in the corners of his mouth, and his liver function tests were always within the normal range. But there, see the red grapes? Next, I took him to the Hofelen Clinic in Germany, Bad Mergentheim, for ultraviolet blood irradiation, blood ozonation, hydrobaric oxygen therapy, and all of those other things, intravenous vitamin C, homeopathics, biological immunotherapy, thymus extract, you name it. There's no evidence to suggest it does any harm. Why not? And it went very, very well. We were there for 3 weeks, and we rented an apartment and carried on with the diet and all the other things that we had done at home. And as you can see, he was really starting to get better. So, by this time, my 5 strategies had really paid off. Bobby's allopathic treatment lasted just 5 months and 1 week. The side effects were minimal, just a little sickness and loss of his hair. The testing had revealed possible causes, and we could see these things leaving his body: the mercury, the halogenated benzene, the strontium, the parasites, the huge selenium deficiency, the gut bacterial dysbiosis, and the other probable causative, contributory and trigger factors that the testing had identified. Many children are treated for over 2 years and are still lost. The combined effect of the supplementation, the diet, the clean water, the resonant light, the zapper, craniosacral osteopathy, Reiki, massive amounts of positive thinking and visualization, Vega testing, Kirlian photography, far infrared sauna, ozone sauna, Hofelen Clinic, Lots of sunshine, daily body brushing, no sunblock or indeed any kind of personal care products, not even toothpaste, natural non-toxic cleaning products, removal of his bedroom carpet, a wooden instead of metal bed, a no spring mattress, as much sleep as he wanted, made the crucial difference. Of the dozen or so children who were diagnosed with neuroblastoma in our hospital while we were in and out, only one other than Bobby survived, but with severe hearing damage, massive weight loss and untold pain and suffering that Bobby just did not have. This picture was taken when we were on Grand Bahama Island. We went to see a Dr. Kevin Bethel for a gene therapy called Gendersin. It's been used by the Chinese for some time now, but you have to dig to find this stuff. The treatment is designed to stimulate P53 expression, a major housekeeping gene. Now, we were there for 6 weeks in a suite at a Sheraton. It's deja vu. We took everything with us and continued with the diet, the juicing, the saunas, etc., etc., etc. It was no different there to what it was at home. But the testing showed when we got home that his P53 expression, where before was poor, was now normal. Now, during all this time, I saw many children who suffered so much that I felt guilty that my son came through it so easily. I had by this time spent well over £100,000, and I could not stop thinking that all other children should have this. So I started fundraising so other kids could have the no stone unturned approach that Bobby had had. I set up a telephone call centre to market raffle tickets, and with the help of over 100 staff, raised over £1 million in 12 months. Bobby's fund is currently supporting over 30 UK children with all the same equipment I have, and all the testing, supplementation, integrated cancer specialist consultations, trips to Germany. And guess what? We have kids whose parents have been told by oncologists that there is nothing more that can be done, yet their tumours are regressing, calcifying and even disappearing. Now, I came here because if any of you know of any kids who have malignancy, now or in the future, I know that we can make a difference. Our website is bobbysfund.org. Now, on there, I've written a number of reports about what I've discovered. You know, I really feel that I must share this with people. The subjects covered are water, refined sugar, milk, factory-made bread, convenience food, microwave ovens, sodas, still drinks, label lies, what they don't tell us on their packets, fats and oils, nightlights and melatonin, artificial sweeteners, non-stick coatings, candida overgrowth, and lots of other subjects. So, go on the website and you know, they're free. If you'd like to make a donation, that'd be cool. But, you know, please take this information. And finally, that's Bobby this week before I left. He's in our vegetable garden at home picking his dinner. Thank you. He's there picking his own dinner. Now, he has perfect hearing. His growth is normal. His kidneys and liver have sustained no damage. And there were never any bowel disturbances. All due, I know, to this integrated, holistic approach. And it could save so many other children if only the allopaths would listen. Thank you very much.